Good afternoon, everyone. I welcome you all to today's online counseling session on aspects of language. I hope you're all keeping safe in these terrible times. Now, please do take care of yourself and your loved ones. I'm Satabdi Mohanty, your academic consultant for English at Odisha State Open University. I'm the moderator for today's counseling session. So today we have with us Dr. Arun Behera sir. So he'll be dealing with aspects of language, Block 1 and Block 2, MEG 4. Dr. Arun Behera sir is an Associate Professor of English at Sri Sathya Sai deemed to be University, Bangalore. He holds a PhD besides PGDTE from the prestigious FLU Hyderabad and a dozen other certifications. He is also a certified IELTS, SAT, accent neutralization and soft skill trainer, a certified counselor, and also a certified admissions advisor for MAP My Study. Also an advisor for RNB Global University and JJJ University. He is also a PhD examiner, evaluator, academic counselor, content writer, and board of studies member for several universities. He is also a director, editor, reviewer of numerous international and national journals. He has been conferred with MTC Award, IRDP Award, Shiksha Ratan Purashkar, and MSA Golden Jubilee Award for his rich and varied experience of over 31 years. He has published over 100 research articles and 8 books besides 10 entries in the London's East End Encyclopedia. An expert in phonetics and a much sought after resource person, Arun sir has delivered innumerable lectures and webinars. Sir, I welcome you to today's online counseling session and thank you so much for accepting our invitation for this counseling session. We start today's class. I have a few set of instructions to the learners. Now, please refrain yourself from asking questions regarding assignments and other related stuffs that are not related to this class, because such questions you can call us during the office time and you can ask the same. But restrict your comments to the class only. If you have any doubts regarding today's class, you can post the same in the YouTube comment section. Now, don't post your personal details on the YouTube comment section, because I have seen people posting their personal contact information. Please don't do that. This is a public platform, okay? And please be patient and listen to what sir is saying, and your questions you can post the same in the comment section, and sir will be answering the same towards the end of this counseling session. All right? So now may I please request sir to take over today's counseling session.
Thank you, Satabdi, for the nice introduction. I enjoyed taking classes for OSAU last year also. 2 years ago also, I took classes for both MEG and BAEG, and I enjoyed both. Especially the participants are very, I have found the participants to be very active and enthusiastic. They listen to the lectures patiently and also ask questions whenever they have any doubt. Of course, I'll make an endeavor to make it as seamless and as easy as possible so that you don't have any questions. In case you have any, as Satabdi ma'am instructed you, you can post them towards the end. We will earmark some time, maybe 10-15 minutes for questions and answers, and I'll try to respond to those questions toward the end of the session. In the next 90 minutes or so, minus 5 minutes, of course, so in the next 85-90 minutes, I'll deal with two modules. Since it's a vast area and we cannot do that in a span of 90 minutes, we cannot cover all the contents in the 90 minutes. I'll try to touch upon the important points that are necessary for you to understand these two modules, these two blocks. Meanwhile, we will also try to understand and appreciate, starting with what language is and what are the features of language, characteristics of language, and all the way up to how language developed and how we use language for different contexts. In the backdrop of all this, it's also pertinent for us, for all of us to understand and bear in mind how language impacts us or influences us or how we are influenced by language. All right. Now, first thing first. Uh, as as uh, as per the norms mm, of any platform, including this platform, it will be most likely a one-way conversation for the first 75 minutes or so, 65, 70 minutes, and later we will leave some space, some time for questioning. But meanwhile, in case you have any question, you can always type it in the chat box, and we will try to respond to them with the help of the moderator. All right. Now, when we talk of language, any language in general, I am not specifying or dealing with English to be the language in the first place. Any language. When we use a language, one of the primary purposes, one of the primary focuses of a language is to communicate. We want to say something. We want to tell somebody something. We want to convey some message to somebody. If we want to tell somebody something, if we want to convey somebody to something, if we want to leave a message, the easiest vehicle, the easiest mode of operation, the easiest mode of conveyance would be the language. Now, how does that work? Let's say I want to call somebody, I want to greet somebody, good morning, good afternoon. I want to send a message to somebody asking me to see him. I want to send a message to somebody, a wish, birthday wish, for example. Now, how do I do that? These days, of course, things are different. We can do it through different social media, including WhatsApp and Facebook and LinkedIn. But even otherwise, even when all these things never existed, we would still convey our message. So long ago, when languages, written or spoken language, also did not exist, uh, language, a formal language. When I say language, a formal language didn't exist. People would let's say set fire on a hilltop. So when people from the neighboring villages would see the smokestack, and then they knew, they would understand that there was something happening. There was some news, and then people would go and inquire, and then they would get the news that okay, the king was blessed with a son, let us say. So in order, because you wouldn't send, we didn't have the possibilities of sending messages through post maybe, or speed post, or courier, or any of these modes, or in the modern times social media and other platforms. People would see the smokestack, and then knew, they would understand that there was something. Then maybe the king was blessed with a son, or the queen died, uh, or there was a war, some kind of a news. Later, of course, many centuries later, people began to use runners, for example. Now, runners used, were hired to send messages, to dispatch messages. If I wanted to send a message to somebody, I would hire the services of a runner, write the message in a palm leaf, maybe, or on a sheet of paper, or whatever was available then, and then hand it over to the runner, and he would run from one place to another and deliver it. But there were problems there. In the first case, in the case of the smokestack, when people used to set fire on a hilltop or on a higher altitude, the it nobody would know the news unless somebody actually went near the village, near the hill, and then got the news. Alternatively, in the second case also, nobody would get the news unless the runner reached the place and delivered the message to the person concerned. There were innumerable problems with the runner. He might be eaten away by a tiger or a lion along the forest. Somebody might attack him and might kill him. He might fall. He might get exhausted and then might collapse. There were numerous things that could happen, and they also prevented the news from getting delivered. Much later, many years later, many centuries later, maybe people began hiring pigeons, for instance. So they would write a message, tie it to the leg of a pigeon, and then set it free, and then it would go and then deliver. In fact, in Kotak is one of those places. Even now, also they had. In fact, that's the world's only center with pigeons where they were hired as messengers. They don't do the services now anymore, but they are still there. That station is still there. Now, those That also again there were problems. Somebody might kill the pigeon. It might get land up in a wrong place. It might somebody might catch it and then cage it. So again, that also eliminated. That also resulted in the messages being either delivered to the wrong person or not delivered at all. Gradually, of course, man began to learn to write and speak in a formal way and write, of course. Right, of course, with the process of with the invention of the hieroglyphics, and then we had finally, of course, we had the capstone press and all those things. Then people began to write, and then when they wrote, when we learned writing, when we learned to speak, then we spoke to people, then we wrote to people, and then those messages were delivered. This is about human language. I'm talking of human language. There is another language, of course, which is not non-human, which is animal language, for example. Now, birds chirp, animals, monkeys, and all those gibber. There are some other animals, hyenas, for instance, laugh. They are also, they may also be construed as, they may also be considered as language. But the distinction between these two kinds of languages, human language on the one hand and other language, when I say other language, language within quotes, because they are not language per se. They cannot be defined as language in the strict definition because they do not fulfill certain conditions. I will come back to that in a few minutes from now. Allow me maybe 2 3 minutes to delve on the difference between human language and other languages. Human languages are specific. When we want to say something, it means it refers to something like 1:1. If I say something, get me a glass of water, it means actually a glass of water. Now, when we say a glass of water, get me a glass of water, there are three things. We are asking somebody, so which means there is a person involved, one more person involved, mother, brother, sister, servant, anybody. So that's one. Somebody is involved in the act. Then I want a glass of water. So get me a glass of water. I want a glass of water, not anybody else. So that's number two. Number three, glass of water. Now you can't get me a bucket of water. I am not asking for water in any other form, in a snow or a steam form, uh, and I'm not expecting you to get me a glacier or a part of a snow or ice, all those, right? So it's flat. I want glass, and that also, when I say glass of water, it means drinking water. Luckily for us, in other languages, when we say, that's a distinction. When we say in when we say in other languages, say English, Odia or Telugu or whatever, we have a specific term for that. If I want drinking water, I ask for drinking water. In other language, in English, when we say get me a glass of water, it means I'm referring to, I'm asking for drinking water. So I want a glass of water, and somebody will get me that, and it's in the it's in the form of water in a glass, not in a bucket, not in a tub, not any other water, not saline water, and all those, right? So that's pretty clear. Animal language, on the other hand, it's not discrete. If a bird chirps, for example, you don't know why it's doing that. It may be calling some other bird. It may be protesting against something. It may be asking you to do something, some kind of thing that we don't know. There is no connect between what it says or what it chirps and what it means. Animal also, when it barks, for instance, a dog barks. It may bark at a stranger. It may do something. It may bark at a snake, maybe, or it may bark because it's hungry, or it may bark because it's not happy. Some kind of a thing. Similarly, any animal you take, any bird you take, all those, there are those animals. Those things cannot be defined as language because they do not fall under. They do not fulfill any of the conditions of a language. Human language is specific. So when I say language, I mean human language. And when I say human language, we mean whatever language that we use to communicate something, to tell somebody something, to send a message across, to convey a feeling. All those. When I say I love you, it means I love you. When I say I want that, it's simple. It's simple. It's flat. I want that. All right. Now coming to language, human language. So human language is specific. We want to convey something. Somebody will tell X tells something to Y, and there are two persons involved, X on the one hand, Y on the other hand. That's a message that something he wants to tell, he or she wants to tell. So that's the message. And there's a feedback mechanism also. Feedback, how do you know that? If I tell something like good afternoon, you'll also respond and reciprocate good afternoon. Then I know that you are listening to me, you are responding to me, and you are greeting me back. You are reciprocating my greetings. When I say good afternoon, you also say good afternoon, and that's how the cycle is complete, the communication, the process is complete. If there is no response, for example, if I say something and there is no response, there are two possibilities. First one, you are insensitive, indifferent, callous, you don't want to respond. It's possible that you may not like to reply to that, may not like to respond to that, and that's where you stop. Alternatively, you are deaf, you are not able to hear anything. There's a fault in the system, in the communication system. My mic is not working, you are not able to hear anything, you are deaf, or some kind of a thing, right? It can happen in both these cases. But if you say, when I say good afternoon and you say good afternoon, then there's the cycle of the process of communication works. I say something, you say something else, and that's how the process goes on. And that's where communication gets effective, becomes effective. Right. Now, let's come to language. Let's come to human language. Even before coming to human language, also there is one more thing that we must understand. Language can be used in any of these three ways. One, spoken one. Whatever we speak, everybody speaks. It can be a speech, it can be a message, it can be asking something for some favor, it can be making a request, it can be, right, anything. So that's one, spoken. Second one is written. When we write, it can be chat, it can be WhatsApp, it can be Facebook, it can be a message. You can write a letter and then deliver it, courier it, or ship it, or speed post it, or it can be a poster on a wall, it can be a picture on a wall. So all those are written things. When you write something, it can be a picture, it can be an image, it can be a written word, it can be anything. That's writing, written. So one is spoken, second one is written. Third one is also there. That's not a formal language though, or not a part of, not a type of language, but then we still consider it another form or another means of language, because that's called gesture or body language or sign language or semiotics. Now, when we talk of semiotics or sign language or language that we use to convey something, the signs or the symbols that we use to convey some message to somebody, that we tell somebody, those are involved in semiotics or sign language. When you say like this, hi, it's even if don't open your mouth, even if you don't say hi, don't open your mouth, you keep your mouth shut and then still do this, the other person will understand that you are greeting him or her, right? If you say this, the other person will understand that you are doing namaste, and the other person will reciprocate saying namaste, how are you? That's where. Or when you are terribly upset, when you are, something went wrong, something didn't go as per plan, so you feel terrible, and then you feel disgusted maybe, and then so my food, for example, you say my food, even without opening your mouth, you still show some disgust, some feeling that you are terrible, that you are bad, that you feel sad. That will reflect, that your face will show. So that's sign language. Those are three ways we language can be divided into. One is the written one, second one is spoken one, third one is sign language or semiotics. In the written language, we have all the letters of the alphabet. We have all the 26 letters. We call them the set of the alphabet A through G, and then we have words formed out of those combinations. You combine those letters and then form words, syllables even, and those syllables or words again form into phrases, and then that's how you go on, and then make sentences, and then make paragraphs and essays. Right. When you talk of a language as a structure, language as a unit, language as something, as a vehicle of communication, either in written mode or in spoken mode, It does a lot of things. First one, basic one is that you tell somebody something and the other person gets it as it is. There is no gap between what you say and what you intend to say. Let me come to this. You say something. Let's say you say something like, I love India. Why should somebody understand? What makes somebody understand that you mean something else and not your love for India? Why should it make the other person feel or believe or think that when you say I love India, it does not mean that you love India? It should not. It should not. There should not be a discrepancy or gap between what you say and what you mean. But many a time it also happens that we say something and the other person means it as something else, which is when we need to clarify, telling, "Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I didn't mean that. I wanted to say something. I was misquoted. I was quoted out of context. I was the words that I pronounced meant something else," kind of thing. All those clarifications come. That's basically because there's a gap between what you say and what you think, right? Actually, technically, there should be a link. There should be a sync, sync. There should be a sync between what we say, what we think, and what we say and what we mean, right? Thought, word, and deed. Thought. Now, whatever I think, I am thinking now that I love India. That's thought. Word. What are the words I pronounce? I love India. Love is the word, India is the word. Now, what should it mean? It should mean that yes, my love for India is great. But sometimes what happens is people, especially in communication, both written and spoken, sometimes there may be it may happen. It may sometimes it happens that there are gaps between what we mean and what we say, and therefore we are quoted out of context. We people misunderstand us. We are that we miscommunicate something, especially with regard to punctuation. For example, when you put a comma in place where it's not necessary, or when you take a pause where it's not necessary, or when you intonate where it should be falling but then you rise, uh, in spoken English, intonation and stress, all those, they make things complicated. As it's as flat as this. We say something, we mean something. That's it. In case there is no discrepancy between what you think and what you say, there should not be any issue. But sometimes it happens. There are, of course, there are certain issues. There are certain things that are not in our control. That maybe we are not aware of, or maybe we ignore. It could be either because we are ignorant of that, so that we ignore that and then say, okay, whatever happens happens. I don't care a straw for that. Alternatively, secondly, there could be a deliberate thing telling, let me do it this way so that he gets hurt, so that he feels hurt, so that he gets a sense of what I have in mind. Right. Now, once that kind of a thing happens, then there's no way out. There's no way out. We say something, we mean something else. We are misquoted. People misunderstand us. Communication breaks down, and whatever we intend to say doesn't get delivered. Right. So technically, there should be a sync between or among three things: thought, word, and deed. Whatever I think, that has to reflect, and that will be reflected only if I am confident of what I say. That will be okay only when I have conviction in my mind that yes, this is what I say. I don't mean anything else. I mean exactly this. So that conviction has to be there. Conviction comes again only when you have personal morality, ethics. When you have ethics, you have morality, you have professionalism, then conviction will be there. That yes, whatever I say is right, whatever I believe in is right, whatever I preach or vouchsafe is right, then there is no gap. then so that's thought. Whatever goes on inside the mind must come out from my mouth, and therefore I don't mix my words, I don't mince my words, I don't say something else when I mean to say something else, right? So that's what word, thought and word, and then deed is when actually you deliver that, when you actually deliver, right? In your this course, this MEG MA English 4 block 4 has these unit aspects of language. Now, when you talk of language, aspects of language, aspects means what is language. Number one, what is language? Number two, what is the nature of language? What makes language? What are the features or characteristics of a language? And then how language is different from other mode of conveyance, other vehicle of conveyance, other things that makes language work. In the second block, of course, in block 2 of MEG 4, we will deal with history of English language, how language evolved, how sounds changed, whatever sounds that we began to use at one point in time, gradually over the years, they also changed this sound, maybe spellings also changed, and then changes in vocabulary, and then changes in grammar. Now, when we talk of changes, all of us are aware that change is the only constant thing. It keeps evolving. We keep evolving. Whatever language we used 5,000 years ago, it's not the same again. We evolve, we change, we progress, and the transition that happens from one point in time to the next point in time, they are also visible changes. Not many may be visible, but there are lots of them which are visible. We can know that this is how words used to be spelled, this is how we used to pronounce certain words, this is how we used to use certain words in context. Now those words have changed, the meanings have changed, spellings have changed, pronunciations have changed, usage have changed. One example I'll give you off the cuff, maybe uh, say for example Shakespeare. During Shakespeare's time, Elizabethan literature, uh, they used to refer to women uh, as wives, right? So, in if instead of telling that I met three women, women speakers at the conference, I met three women speakers at the conference, uh, and an Elizabethan audience would say, I met three wives, right? I met three wives at the conference. Look at the way it has evolved from then, when we used to call or refer to women as wives. Now we call them women, not even women. Now we are even using a gender sensitive term. So something like we don't say chairman or chairwoman, we say chairperson. That's because there are some people who may be gender sensitive, who may not be comfortable being called a man or a woman, and therefore we call them chairperson. So somebody is the chairperson of so and so. If you say chairman, it refers to only men, which is again not a healthy sign. Or if you say chairwoman, again, sometimes you may have a chairperson, a chairman also, and maybe there are eunuch gender, there are third genders, there are people belonging to the third genders. They also may head an organization, which is why we now to be neutral, to be case neutral, to be gender neutral, we use the term, a blanket term, chairperson. So chairperson will cover everybody: chairman, chairwoman, chair, neutral gender, everybody. So that's how we are evolving. Earlier, we used to only call chairman. We used to call man is mortal. Many years ago, when we would refer to people, we refer to human beings. We said man is mortal. We never said woman is mortal, child is mortal, girl is mortal. We would say man is mortal. That's because, uh, basically, of course, there were historical reasons, that because ours was a male-dominated society, so everybody, the entire society revolved around men, and therefore they said man is mortal, even though it referred to, or we meant children, women, girl, boy, everybody. But then we would say man is mortal. Now it doesn't hold good. It doesn't hold good now because we no more belong to a society which is only male dominated or chauvinistic. Our society is open now. We are so open that that it means it's inclusive. It includes men, it includes women, it includes third gender, it includes everybody, right? And therefore, we no more say man is a man is mortal or uh, man is a mortal being, right? Okay. Now coming back to where we had left, language. When we say language, I as I clarified in the beginning of this lecture, that language refers to human language. I am not going to talk about, we are not going to deal with language that's not human. We are not talking of animal language. We are not talking of machine language. We are not talking of language which is not human, right? So human language or language used by the humans. It may vary, it's possible. And it includes language includes both spoken language, written language, and also gesture or sign language or semiotics. But all of them refer to human. There is some element of human involvement in this language. We are not we are not talking about language that's not human or which is animal or which is a machine. Right. When we have when we talk of human language, then it's natural. Then the next question is, then what are the features, what are the things, or how do you define language, how do you segregate language, human language, from others? How do you make one language stand out from others? As I told you again at the beginning of this session, that language is basically human. Though there are also animals and animal language and machine language, but since we are talking about only human language, so language is basically human language. Whatever we pronounce, whatever we use to convey, to tell something, to send a message across, to share a piece of information, all those all those are parts of human language. It may be, it's possible again that if I just maybe call somebody, get me a glass of water. Now that also is human language because there in that context, the person involved, look at this thing. It's such a simple thing, but then it involves so many pieces of activities. Number one, it involves at least two human beings, right? If I say, get me a glass of water, it involves at least two human beings. I am asking for water and somebody is there, right? Mother, sister, brother, wife, husband, driver, servant, anybody. So those are two people, individuals are involved. Second thing, there's a piece of act. When I say get me a glass of water, I don't mean anything else. I'm not asking for a driver. I'm not asking for a cab. I'm not asking for a mobile phone. I'm not asking for a class. I'm asking for a glass of water. That's number two. Number three, when I say glass of water, I'm not expecting somebody to get me to give me a bucket of water or a tub of water or a spoon of water, right? I specifically want uh, drinking water. So that therefore message is again clear. Number four, even though I did not use the word drinking water, I didn't say get me a glass of drinking water. I still mean that because in that context, both of us both of us understand that that water is for the purpose of drinking, not for anything else. If I wanted to wash my feet, I will ask for something else. I will not ask for a glass of water. If I want to use the water for washing something, washing clothes, I will not ask for a glass of water to wash my clothes. And therefore, it's in that context again, it means that I'm asking for drinking water, right? So therefore, in the context, it in the environment, in the speaking environment, in the speech environment, or both the parties involved understand that one person is asking for a glass of drinking water, and therefore he or she has to give him a glass of water. It's flat, and in a speech context, it cannot mean anything else. But in another context, that's why I have been insisting that language is different. Human language is different from other language. In an animal language, when an animal barks or chirps or hyenas laugh, for example, or parrots talk, they mean something else, and it's not consistent. Look, it's not consistent. A parrot, if a dog barks now, it's not that every time a dog barks, that's a thief. No, it does not. You cannot relate it. You cannot do it on a one-on-one basis. A dog may bark, a dog might bark for any of these following reasons, any of these 100 reasons. Reasons are number one, there might be a thief, there may be a stranger, there may be a snake, it might be hungry, it might be angry, it might want freedom, want to go out of the cage, want to go out of the chain. It might want to go out for a walk. It might want it might get irritated, right? Those are possibilities. Now, how do you equate? How do you know that when a dog barks, this is what he means? But in a human case, in a human language case, you know, if I say something, this is what it is. If I want a pen, if I want a glass of water, if I want to greet somebody good morning or good afternoon, it means there is a one-on-one relationship. The equation is always 1:1. If I say, get me a glass of water, it's one glass of water. If I say good afternoon to somebody, the other person responds and says good afternoon. So therefore, the equation is always 1:1 in a human language, unlike in machine language or animal language, where it is not 1:1. So language is a vehicle of communication. We tell somebody something. It's purely human and non-instinctive method. It's not that you tell something out of instinct. We it may be non-instinctive. It's also a system by which sounds and meanings are related. When we say something, that's what Fromkin and Rodman say. They say language is that system by which sounds and meanings are related. You say something, you pronounce some sounds, and they are related. Or is the most sophisticated versatile means available to human beings. We tell somebody, Brown says that language is the most sophisticated and versatile means. How sophisticated? You pronounce words, sounds, you put accent on different syllables, or stress on different syllables, you intonate. Now that's a sophisticated thing. It's not flat telling, it's okay. Every time you pronounce something, every time you say something, it makes the same sound. No, it does not. If you want to request somebody for something, your tone changes. Your If you want to ask somebody for something, your tenor changes. If you want to inform somebody of something, like let's say somebody died, you want to tell somebody, telling somebody died, you will not say, hey, no, hey, come on, you know what, he died just now. You won't tell that. You will tell with something very grim and say, I'm so sorry, I had to share this news with you. So and so died yesterday. So and so died of heart attack. So and so died of COVID. Right. Look at the tone and the tenor that you use to convey a message. But then, in case you want to share somebody with somebody a news, a piece of information telling that he has passed the +2 exams, +2 or BA exams, then you would say, um, congratulations, you got 94%. I saw your marks, or your friend called me up and told me, your mom told me. So that's where you make the distinction. Right? So language is a system of arbitrary vocal symbols. That was Treasure says, arbitrary vocal symbols. Similarly, language is a pattern symbol of arbitrary sounds. Pattern, that's a pattern there. That's every time I say something, every time I use language, I use these patterns, both spoken and written. In any form, in either of these forms, I use a pattern that these sounds, these isolated individual sounds, will combine together, will club together and form or form in the form a word or a syllable or a sentence, and then that's how this will convey a certain message. Now, language, how did language originate? Long ago, thousands of years ago, people began to speak. Now, there was no systematic pattern. There was no scheme of things where people would sit together and then say, okay, come on, we'll try to speak this. We'll try to use this language. they would have told, they would have been communicating in some way, and then they found a pattern that okay, so when I use this language, when I use this word is for water, that word is for an arrow, that set of words is for children. That's how we began using, and that evolution took thousands of years. It did not evolve overnight. Now, so many years we would have practiced, we would have done, we would have used language to evolve and then make it and give it a shape and give it a pattern so that it becomes uniform. So whoever uses that language, for example, English. Now there are so many languages. There are 6,500 languages, right? At least 6,500 recorded languages with speakers over a million. Each of those 6,500 languages is unique. For English, we have A through G, A, B, C, D, and although the alphabet contains 26 letters. The whole set of letters is called alphabet, and each of them is a letter. A is a letter, B is a letter, G is a letter. Each letter again is independent, is individual. You cannot replace one letter or sound with another. If you replace that, if you swap one sound or one letter with another, that will change in the meaning of the word, also in the formation of the word, both form and meaning, structure and meaning. That's what minimal pair is one example of that. Since all of you are MA English students, you would have done that in your BA English also, and also maybe a part of, since this may be your first semester, uh, in the initial classes you would have done that, somebody would have dealt with them. Even if you haven't done that, don't worry. It's not rocket science. Not that it's so easy also, but then it's not rocket science either. Now when you pick up a language, when you speak a language, I'm giving English because that will make our understanding of things easier. Not that English is easier than Odia, but then our understanding of things becomes easier with regard to English than with regard to any other language. When you start using a language, each sound, right? There are 26 letters, A through G, A, B, C, D, and all those. Each sound is also unique. If you say per, for example, per as in parrot, or per as in cupboard, or that's silent there, of course, or per as in nip. In each of those cases, initial, medial, and final sounds. In the first case, it's like, let's say, paper or pilot. So there, per is initially it's aspirated because that's used in the stress syllable, and therefore it's aspirated, and so we say pilot. In the second case, copper, for example, in the second example, copper, it's in the middle, right? So in the word like copper, it's it appears in the middle and it's not aspirated, as contrasted to, as opposed to the first sound in the first word, in the first example. In the third case, at the end, when it appears at the final position, nip or tip or top, the per is the final, is in the final position, and it terminates there. The sound terminates there. There are three different qualities that you can feel with regard to the use of single sound per. But then the per in all the cases across the board, anywhere you use, will will refer to the same sound per. It does not refer to a sound like ba, or sound like ta, or sound like e, or something else. So that way each sound is unique. And when you combine those sounds, many a time we need to combine those sounds or letters to form words, and sounds to form words, syllables and words. When you combine those sounds, the combination of those sounds, combination of a set of sounds, gives you words or phrases. And again, each word is again different in terms of pronunciation, in terms of meaning, in terms of usage, in terms of quality. There are variations. There are many ways that you can find each word is different from another in terms of the quality, in terms of meaning, in terms of the pronunciation, in terms of the way it's used. No two words are similarly used or similarly pronounced. Similarly, pronounceable words. There are some words which are homophones. We call them homophones. That you can pronounce. Maybe there are very minor, small differences between in terms of the quality of pronunciation between two or more words. Those are different. Those are different. Those you call them homophones because their spellings may be different, but they are pronounced almost similarly. I still maintain it's not exactly similar. I say almost similar. Now, almost is somewhere around 90%, 95%, something, not 100%. Anything less than 100% is almost, right? Equal to would be equal to. That's exactly 100 is 100. But I'm not telling, I don't mean it's 100%, it's exact. It's equal to, maybe similar to, maybe, or close to, right? So when you have a close proximity in terms of the quality of sound, then the variation you can feel. All right. Now, I'm sorry. So when those sounds, when people began, when man began to speak, then they must have used different sounds and combining them, and combination of those sounds resulted in different words, and then that's how we evolved over a period of time. Of course, there are so many theories, that natural sound theory, poo poo theory, maybe there is ding dong theory, divine source theory. There are lots of theories that that make the rounds, but then one thing is clear, that human beings are the only species, are the only living organism in the planet that is capable of speaking, right? Clear? So human beings are the only living organism that is capable of speaking. That's one. Other animals, other things also speak, but that's not human speech. Monkeys gibber maybe, or parrots talk, or hyenas laugh, or some other animals may speak, but they are not human speech. That's one clear. Second thing, human speech is different from other speech in the sense that it's unique. It conveys one consistent thing. If I say one thing, if I say water, water means everywhere for everybody. Water refers to the elixir of life, some liquid, some fluid thing. That's for everybody across the globe. Somebody may be in Antarctica, somebody may be in the US, somebody in India, somebody may be doing it now, somebody must have done it 100 years before, somebody might talk about this 10 years from now. All of them refer to same substance, water. Number three, depending on the quality of pronunciation, maybe, or the usage, there may be variance, right? So whatever somebody pronounces a word, it may mean something, but when somebody changes the pronunciation, it may mean something else. Similarly, change also, when we change a letter, for example, syllable or letter, that also changes the meaning of the word. It's not consistent. But everywhere, if you change a word, if you replace a sound or a letter, one sound or a letter by another sound or letter, the meaning, the word, the context, the usage changes. Say, for example, in a word like, let's say, light, L-I-T-E, light. If you replace that T with, let's say, K, L-I-K, that becomes like. Like is not light. Like is different from light. Similarly, if you replace that L with something like M, so it becomes mic. It doesn't become like. And like and mic are two different things, and that's how changes in either syllable or sound or letter also result in changes of meaning of a word. Now there are few characteristics of human language. One is arbitrary, right? Now when we talk of arbitrary, that we know that one word, one sound, one particular sound means one in a context, one thing in a context. If you replace that by something else, the meaning changes. So in case of animals, for example, there is no correlation between the signal and the message. Whatever they say and whatever you get, there is no consistency. That's why I gave you the example of a dog, of a barking dog. When a dog barks, you will never be able to tell that every time a dog barks, there's a snake. No, it's not possible. Sometimes it may bark because there's a stranger, because it's hungry, because it's angry, because it wants to be freed of the chain. because it wants to go out. It can be anything, right? And number of possibilities. But when a human being says something, you know that this is what it means. I want, if somebody says I want to watch TV, a small kid will insist his or her mother for, let's say, Pokemon, a TV series, something like Pokemon or Chota Bheem. Now you know that kid is asking for this series on TV. He is asking for Chota Bheem on TV. It's flat. It's simple. Similarly, creativity. We can create. We can combine. Humans are capable of combining letters and sounds n number of times, and then create or recreate new words, new sounds, and new usage. I give you, if you have a box of, let's say, I give you three letters, right? I give you three letters. Let's say B, A, and T. Four letters. Okay, we'll make it four so that we can have more possibilities. B, A, T. Let's say S. So you can now combine those letters into forming several words: BATS, BAT, TAB, TABS. So tabs, bats, then stab, STAB, stab. Right? That's how you can create words using those letters or sounds. Now, this creativity is unique only to humans. Animals, you cannot expect animals to be creative. No, animals, you cannot say that, okay, if you bark this way, we will know that you are barking when there's a snake. If you bark that way, we will know that there is a thief. That's a thief. And for a smaller thief, the bark is like this. For a bigger thief, for a rubber, for example, the barking quality is different. We don't know that. We cannot define that way, right? And so, and some other features may be something like reciprocity. If I say you good morning, you will say me good morning. Now that's reciprocity. If I say hi, you will say hi, right? That's one-on-one relationship. Anywhere you say namaste, the other person will say namaste. How are you? If you shout at him telling who the hell are you, the other person will say, what do you mean? So that's reciprocity. Similarly, turn taking. When you tell something, the other person also will tell something else, and that's taking turn. It's not overlap. It doesn't overlap. You tell something, the other person responds. That if there is a third person, he will also respond. He or she will also respond, and that's how you take turns. And the whole process gets completed with what is called feedback. I tell something, you say thank you, and I say welcome. Now that's the whole process. That's the cycle with which a communication gets completed. I tell something, I say good morning. You respond by telling good morning, how are you? You say I am fine, thank you. How about you? That makes the whole process complete. And any language, including English, in English, Odia, all languages, any language, one purpose of language is to convey a message. That's the simplest job a language does. I tell something, other person responds, then you say thank you. That makes the whole process complete. Similarly, in a it's about a speech context. And when you ask a question, the other person responds. If you greet somebody, the other person greets you back. If you shout at somebody, the other person shouts back. Now that's the context. That's what it makes. If you shout at somebody, who the hell are you? You can't expect the other person to tell, oh, I thank you for shouting at me. You will not expect the other person to respond to you in that way. If you shout at somebody telling who the hell are you, who the hell you think you are, or hell with you, you cannot expect the other person also to tell, thank you for shouting at me, thank you for uh, frowning at me, right? It's always you pay back at the same coin. You greet somebody with warmth, other person also will say warmly, thank you. good morning, so nice of you, beautiful, and all those. But if you scorn at somebody, if you shout at somebody, the other person also will shout at you. And therefore, the in any speech context, in any ordinary human speech context, things are always related. You say something, you get the same reply. You ask a question, what's your name? You say, oh, I'm Shyam. You say, what do you do? You say, I teach English. You say, where are you going? You say, I'm going to Mysore. So those are in speech contexts. Outside context, let's say somebody might be asking, let's say you are watching a match. You are watching a match in a stadium, a football or a cricket match in a stadium. Now you can't expect Sachin, who is betting there at the crease, to respond to you telling, okay, Sachin, we want a six, we want you to hit a six, we want you to hit a century, we want you to break a record. That's all right. You want that, but he will not respond to you telling, okay, okay, guys, okay, boys and girls from Sambalpur, Odisha State Open University, I am going to hit a six. I'm going to break a record, to smash a century. He's not going to do that. He may be able to hear you. He knows that everybody in the stadium, a section of the audience in the stadium, expects him to do is to hit a century or hit a six or create a record and all those. But he's not going to respond to you telling, okay, guys, I'm going to respond to your thing. I'm going to hit a six. Now take the ball. He will not do that. He will try. Maybe he will feel good that people expect him to do that. He will feel good that people praise him. He feels good that many people are waiting for a record to be created or broken. All those things are all right. But then he will not respond to you individually. He may do that actually by hitting a six, or maybe creating a record or breaking a record, but he won't respond that. So that's, in that case, it's not one-on-one response. It's not a speech context, because you are telling something like, Sachin, come on, hit a six. He's not going to respond to you in a one-on-one way. He's going to respond to that in the entire stadium. The whole world may be watching, is watching him, and therefore he may do that in his own way, but not in a one-on-one way. So that's not a speech context. All right. Uh, and when we talk of a language, again, there is another interesting area that's also important to understand, called structure. When you talk of any language, we have form and function. There are two aspects of language. One is form, another is function. Form is basically structure and grammar, rules of grammar, and subject verb agreement, and then subject verb object, all those things that make up a sentence, that construct a sentence, that go in the making of a sentence. Those are form or structure. The other one is function, what it means. There are four things actually which make a sentence, any sentence, acceptable. I'm not even telling right or wrong. That's a different thing that we will do in some other context, in some other class. That's a different unit altogether. I'm telling it from the point of view of acceptability. A certain thing is acceptable. A sentence in English is acceptable only if it fulfills all the four conditions. Look at my fingers. I'm telling all the four. I'm not telling democracy and most of them, three out of four, 75%. It's not that. All of four. All four. One is Lexis, Lexes. Lexis is what is words. It constitutes words and vocabs and set of words, all those. Any sentence in any language, you form a sentence in any language by using words, by grouping words together, by putting words together. Incidentally, when we talk of defining a sentence in English, we define it this way. A sentence is made up of a group of words expressing a meaningful thing, right? It expresses meaning. So number one is words. It has words, one or more words. It may have one word, may have number of words. Second condition, a sentence is acceptable only if, only when it has grammar, right? Number one is words, vocabs, or lexis. Second one is grammar, rules of grammar. subject verb agreement. If subject is singular, verb has to be singular. If subject is third person singular, then verb takes s or es. So he goes to college every day. So that's grammar. Then it must begin with a capital letter. If it's a statement, must end with a full stop. If it's a question sentence, interrogative sentence ends with a question mark, and all those are grammar. Subject. So you have lexes or words. Then second condition is grammar. Third is syntax, arrangement of words in a sentence. Subject, verb, and object. In the subject again, you have adjectives and then nouns, and then verbs again. You have helping verbs and main verbs. Right? That's how subject in the arrangement of a sentence you have subject, verb, and object. So that's syntax, arrangement of words in a sentence. Number four, condition number four is it must be meaningful. A sentence has to be, in order for a sentence to be acceptable, it has to be meaningful. You cannot make any four or five words together and then form a sentence. It has to mean something. It has to have a meaning. That's why one of the most oft-quoted examples in the English language, in English grammar, is colorless green ideas sleep furiously. Look at this sentence. Colorless green ideas sleep furiously. This is not an acceptable sentence because it does not fulfill the fourth condition. Though it has words, it has syntax, subject, verb, agreement, and all those. It has grammar. It follows all the rules of grammar, but it's not meaningful. You know why? If something is colorless, it can't be green. It's either colorless or green. It can't be both. Then ideas. Ideas is as a noun. Ideas as an abstract noun is something which can't have a color or colorlessness. It can't. And an abstract noun can't have shape or size and color and all those, and therefore, if you can't say colorless or green ideas, so that's done. Sleep. Sleep is a verb which is active, which goes along with something which is animate, a human activity. So ideas as an abstract noun cannot sleep. For somebody to sleep, it has to be a human being, it has to be an animal, it has to be a living organism, not an idea. And therefore, sleep also doesn't fit in there. Now, furiously is an adverb that again goes with an active verb that actually uh, does something furiously. Sleep is an activity which cannot be done furiously. Right? Somebody shouted at somebody furiously. Somebody told somebody furiously, but not sleep. Sleep is an activity which is very passive, which is very slow, which doesn't involve any kind of curiosity in its ferocity in its activity, and therefore you can't say that somebody is sleeping furiously. And therefore, even though this sentence fulfills all the other three conditions, words and then syntax and grammar, it is not a sentence, acceptable sentence, because it does not fulfill the condition of meaning or semantics. All right, so that's how you have your a sentence should have four conditions in order to be acceptable. Okay, now that's your form, and if you have a form and structure, form or structure and function, then the form is the way in which you construct a sentence, subject, verb, object, and all those, and function, of course, meaning whatever you mean to say in that context. Depending on our context, again determines, look, so many things it takes into account. A context, a speech context, takes into account so many aspects of so many things. First is there has to be at least two persons, right? I speak and you listen, or you speak and I listen. So that's two. At least two. It can be 100, it can be 1:1 million, 1 billion, and all those. But in a podcast, in a television live program, you may have 1:1 person speaking. Man Ki Baat, Prime Minister speaks, for instance, a billion people listens to him. So 1:1 billion. But there are two units. One person on the one hand, the other person on the other hand. At least two. It involves at least two. Second, in a speech context, also means it also has so many other things like social norms and then cultural nuances and then physiological settings and all those. Because you can't talk about something in a place where lots of other noises are being created. So you can't hear, basically, you can't hear. And therefore, a speech context has to be somewhere that you actually want to convey something. Other person wants to hear something, and therefore, you have to have some medium. You have to have some medium. And then, of course, feedback. Once you listen to somebody, then you say, okay, yes, thank you for the talk, or I'm so sorry, I'm not able to hear you, or I didn't get anything that you said now. It can be anything. Feedback can be anything. So that's where you talk of the three things, that you have to have two individuals, you have to have a speech context, and you have to have something to say, that okay, I say something, you get something, and that's how the process is complete. In the second unit of your in the second block of your MEG 4, you have aspects of language. So that deals with changes in sounds and spellings, and then changes in vocabulary and grammar. As I told you again during the course of my lecture, somewhere in the middle of this, that things change, we evolve. Whatever we used some years ago, 500 years ago, 1000 years ago, 5000 years ago, they do not remain the same now. They keep on changing. I give you example of Shakespeare, who used to refer to women as wives. Now that was then, but now it doesn't mean the same thing. Similarly, in a gender neutral case, we do not use words like chairman or sportsman. We use chairpersons, sportspersons, because those are inclusive. Those are gender neutral. We don't want to say only the men belonging to sports, so sportsmen, or somebody like right, chairman, because there can be a woman also who can be a chairperson. There can be a eunuch also, a third gender person also, who can be at the helm of affairs. And therefore, when we say he so and so is the chairperson, that means that we are being gender neutral. We are not focusing on, we are not uh, telling one thing at the exclusion of others. We are being inclusive. So therefore, the meaning changes, usage changes, and speech trends also change. Whatever we used then, whatever we spoke then, also has changed over time. And we had Old English, we had now we have come to all the way to modern English. Old English, of course, we had the English that people used during, uh, I think it was from 450 to 1100 AD onwards. During those 600 650 years, 650 years, whatever English we used was construed as Old English. The Middle English was between 1100 and 1500. Whatever English that people used during the up to Chaucer's, up to Shakespeare's time, that was modern English. That was Middle English. Modern English, of course, after that, from 1500 years onwards, whatever we use has been modern English. But even that also is not consistent. We keep evolving. I'll give you one example. This COVID time, for example, these 1.5 years or close to 2 years, has got us so many words. We have got words like COVIDiers, for example. That's a portmanteau word, by the way. A portmanteau word is a word made up of uh, parts of two or more words grouped together, formed together to give a new word. Now, in a word like COVIDiot or COVIDient or Corona babies, in a word like COVIDiot, you have two words now. COVID is one word and idiot is another word, right? COVID COVID-19 is one word and idiot is another word. We are clubbing them together, parts of both these words, COVID and then diots, COVID diots. So that's how we get new words. Now, these words were not in existence before COVID, before COVID-19. These words, COVIDiots or COVIDient or Corona babies, and all these words are results of this pandemic. So therefore, when we keep evolving, when we keep changing, when we grow, in fact, we grow. We grow in terms of everything. In terms of our language also grows, our culture also grows, our usage also grows, and we grow in all directions. And language is one of them. Language is a part of our culture also, because it's a lively thing. It's not something that is dormant, that's lying somewhere in the box, in the book, and then we use them whenever we need them. No, it's not that. Language is a vibrant thing. It's used. It we use it daily, day in and day out, almost every moment of our awareness. Whenever we are awake, maybe in sleep we may not use. Sleep also, in dream we use, but that's not active. That's not an active activity. But during the time that we are awake, those 10, 12 hours, 14 hours that we are awake, we use language. And it's not necessary that we use language for giving a speech, for taking a class, for listening to a lecture, for writing a note, for writing a test. It's not that. It can be anything. It can be anything. If I think that while watching TV also, when I look at a word, or when I listen to a word somebody using, or when I see somebody using a certain word in some context, I know that this word means something. Taliban, for example, or Hindu terrorism, for example, or COVIDiot, for example. Now, these words, we know that they have a relevance. They have a relevance in a particular society at a particular time. When you talk of Corona, COVIDiot, for example, COVIDiot is a word. Look, it's such a small word, but then look at the manner and extent in which it is used now. Anybody who does not follow COVID appropriate behavior, anybody, it can refer to you, it can refer to me, it can refer to anybody. Whenever somebody does not follow or fails to follow COVID appropriate behavior, he or she is branded as a COVIDiot. Now look at the simplistic definition of this. How simple it is. An idiot is one. An idiot is a fool. An idiot is someone who does not follow certain things, right? We call him an idiot. He's an idiot. He's a fool. He doesn't follow anything. So that's an idiot. A COVIDiot, because he does not follow COVID appropriate behavior. Now, in order to understand this COVIDiot or this COVID appropriate behavior, we need to also understand what are those set of principles, what are those sets of behaviors or protocols that we need to follow in order to be safe from COVID. So we are safe, others are also safe. How do you do that? That, okay, wear your mask properly. Okay, so full, wear your mask properly. Maintain social distancing, 3 feet or one meter. And wherever you go shopping, go to play, go to a public space, wherever you go, so follow social distancing, right? Follow social distancing. Use your mask properly. Now, not just use mask properly. Cover your nose and mouth and up to chin fully, so that you don't exhale the air filled with, maybe, or infected with coronaviruses, or you don't breathe in that air. So that's two. Third is wash your hands regularly or properly. All right. Now those are COVID appropriate behaviors. And then don't go into a crowded place. Don't eat in a public space. Don't spit here and there. All those. Now that's COVID appropriate behavior, CAB. Somebody who doesn't follow that is a COVIDiot. All right, it's so simple. But then, in order to understand that COVIDiot, you also understand the background. You need to understand the background in which this world was created, or these behaviors were set. So now, COVID appropriate behaviors, everybody knows this is what it is. That don't go out of your home unless absolutely necessary. Look, so many things. Don't go out of your home unless absolutely necessary. Wear your mask properly. Maintain social distancing. Wash your hands frequently, regularly, and of course, don't use public transport. and on so many other things. Now that's a set of COVID appropriate behavior. And therefore, the evolution of a word or a set of words or language, language also keeps on evolving and growing. Whatever we used in 15th century, 16th century is not the same English that we use now. It keeps on evolving, it keeps on changing. Um, and now most of our words also are becoming Americanized. We are using, because of the accent, because of the corporate culture, we use American accent more than British accent. We read English literature, British English literature, but while speaking in corporate life, we use American accent. That's because most of the corporate, most of the corporates, most of the companies, most of the offices, and all those are US based. And therefore, in order to change our accent, in order to tune ourselves to the accent of the corporate that people use or expect us to use, we use that English. Now, so we use American accent, we use British English. In spelling also, there are differences between British and American. Color, for example, COLOR is American spelling of the word color, COLOUR, that's British. But whatever we follow, we must be consistent. If it's British, it has to sound like British, it has to be spelled like British. If we use American. It's not that American is superior to British English, or British English because of the eliteness, because the Queen used to, because the Queen uses this English and therefore it has more quality. It's not a question of that. Question is, whatever we use, either British or American, it has to be consistent. All right. Now, so coming to that modern English, you had Old English and then Middle English and then modern English. And during this period, whenever that this English, this modern English, or let's come to modern English, for example, from 1500 onwards until now, these 500 years, these 500 plus years that we have been using English, this is modern English. But even during these 500 years also, lots of things have changed. The changes, especially with regard to spelling, with regard to pronunciation, with regard to usage, with regard to the manner in which, the way in which we use them, they have changed. But the basic basic English still remains the same. Whatever that we began to use, whatever language evolved as English as a language evolved, then the basic structure, the basic framework, the basic skeleton kind of thing, that still remains. Lots of other things have changed with regard to let's say spelling, or even pronunciation, or meaning. Meaning also includes usage. Though the whatever that we began using 500 years ago, or Old English, for example, 5,500 years ago, the basic, the fundamental structure remains the same. Then okay, it evolved as a language. People began to use English as a standard language across the globe. Maybe the penetration has been more. Then, for example, about 1,000 years ago, maybe it was not used uh, across the globe as it is now. It's possible that it was limited only to, or confined only to, a few countries, a few places like the UK and maybe Australia, New Zealand, Canada, the US, and all those. Later, after the British colonized all places, they ruled some parts of the world. Then their language also became a part of those states, and they became a part of the English became a part of that state or that country. It's possible, but then, irrespective of the stand that English has now, irrespective of the position that English uh, commands now, one fact remains the same. The number of users may have risen by many fold now. Then maybe number was less, now number is more. Or in the number of countries or continents, the usage was not as varied as it is now. Or in terms of the meaning, some words meant something then, now they mean something else. It's also possible. Some words are pronounced, were pronounced differently 500 years ago, 100 years ago, or 1500 years ago. They may have changed now, but the fundamental structure remains the same, that English as a language remained with people, and people used to communicate in a language that they were comfortable in. Like in Odisha, for example, in Sambalpur, for instance, people are comfortable using Sambalpuri. People are comfortable using Odia. It's flat. It's not that Sambalpuri or Odia is an inferior language, or English is superior, or Sambalpuri is less important than English. It's not a question of that. It's the question of acceptability. Now, if I speak Sambalpuri in Punjab, nobody will follow. Or if I speak English, if I speak Chinese in Sambalpur, nobody will follow. But if I speak English, people will follow everywhere. Maybe some people may find it a little difficult, but generally, as a trend, because of the popularity that English has gained over the past several centuries, the status that English has gained over the past several years, it has been more acceptable to people than many other languages put together. That's the status that English has gained, and that has made English popular, and people follow it as a comfortable vehicle of communication. It's not that some language is more important than others. It's not that some languages are less important than others. It's a question of uh, comfort. It's a question of ease. It's a question of convenience. It's a question of people's uh, acceptability to a certain language, to a certain thing. And our especially from the points of view of Indians, uh, we find English more comfortable than others, basically because that we were with the British for several years together. They ruled us. They during their reign in India, English became almost like an official language, and the eliteness that they attached to English, that made English a little more maybe higher in the status of other language status than other languages, and that's how we began to pick up English. And the convenience that we were with the English, or the English people, or with English culture for several years, that made us to accept English in an easier way than any other language. And that advantage, of course, many other Commonwealth nations also have the same advantage as Indians have. We have the Indians, and most of the Commonwealth countries, around 60 countries, were under the British rule for one time, for some time or the other, during the entire history. And they, because of their affinity to the language, because of the convenience with which they use the language, or they were exposed to the language, it made our life easier. It made our life simpler, and made the life of the language, English language in particular, easier also to follow. And that's how we are okay with following English. All right. In case you have any question, in case you want to have a doubts cleared, you can put in the chat box, or you can also uh, unmute yourself and ask. I'll try to respond to them. And yes.
Thank you so much, sir. It was an enlightening one indeed. I'm sure the students must have enjoyed and learned a lot. Sir, I see one question. One of the learners has asked, what exactly is lingua franca?
Okay. Lingua franca basically is something like a language which is common to all, a language that we use to communicate between two groups, or sets of people who are not comfortable with either of their language. Let's say I go to Punjab. Now I don't know Punjabi, and they don't know Odia. So therefore, a common language between the people of Punjab and me there would be, let's say, Hindi or English. Or if I go to a place like New Zealand, Australia, any English speaking country, so English would be the lingua franca. And in the present context, with the number of people using English as a language, English is the lingua franca, because it occupies, in terms of the number of speakers, is the second largest spoken language in the world, next to Chinese Mandarin. Of course, Chinese Mandarin has the advantage because China is the most popular state in the world, and therefore the entire people of China, the Chinese, whatever language the Chinese speak, that's the largest spoken language, and English comes next to that. Even in India, also English has an has a good position as far as the status is concerned. Even though in terms of quantity, it may look small that not too many people speak English compared to other languages. Hindi is the official language, and therefore it's bound to be the largest spoken language in India. But in addition to Hindi, English also is the associate official language, and therefore that's the language. Lingua franca is the language that is common to a large section of people, to a large number of people, and English happens to be the lingua franca of the world now. I hope I clarified the answer. Clarified the doubt.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for answering this question. I'm having a lot of network issues from my end. So
No
probably that's
problem.
why. Okay, sir. So there's one more question regarding Sapir-Whorf hypothesis.
What's that? I didn't get the question. Sorry.
So one of the learners has asked Sapir-Whorf hypothesis.
Space hypothesis. Well, it's not. Uh, did I mention during my speech any of this thing?
No, no, sir,
Oh,
no. But
okay.
there was one question. That's why I just narrated that.
Oh, okay, right. Now, it's a uh, it's something like linguistic relativity, like in relation to something like we have HORF, for instance, WHORF, HORF. Now, where it's a principle that suggests that the structure of a language, structure of any language, we are talking of English here, but it can relate to any language. Structure of a language affects the speaker's cognition or understanding of something. Now, that's why I was talking about speech context. In a speech context, people understand, the other person will understand what I mean to say only if both of us share the same speech context. Therefore, let's take the example of this class. If you ask me something about COVID in Bangalore, COVID cases in Bangalore, it's not a part of a speech context because we are doing English here, MEG 4, and it's not a part of speech context, and so that may not be considered a that may not work. So I might say, uh, how is this question COVID in Bangalore related to this class? But then if you ask me something like this context that you are asking now, Sapir's hypothesis, it's like this, that both the people involved in an activity, in a class, or in a particular context, in a speech context, both of them mean the same thing. So here it's something like the speaker's cognition or understanding of something, a principle that suggests that the structure of a language affects the speaker's cognition or speaker's understanding of a certain thing. All right. So it's basically speaker's understanding of a certain thing in a speech context. Outside the context, they may refer to something else. They may mean something else. They do not mean the same thing in a certain speech context alone.
So one last question for today's
Yes.
session.
Yeah.
One of the learners has asked, what is the difference between American English and general British English?
Okay. There are lots of differences between these two, though, in terms of spelling, in terms of pronunciation, in terms of meaning, cultural meaning, though. Now, in terms of pronunciation, in terms of spelling, I gave you one small example of color and color. COLOR is American English. COLOUR. Similarly, favor, FAVOUR, favor. Catalog, CATALOGUE. Those are British English. American English equivalent would be CATALOG, catalog, COLOR, color, and FAVORITE, favorite. Similarly, in terms of pronunciation, also accent. As far as accent is concerned, there is slight variation in terms of British and American. Say, for example, can't and can't. I say I can't, right? But then British Americans say can't. I can't. That's fundamentally pretty much the difference between British and American. And culturally also, there are some words, there are something that uh, Americans use more often than the British, and that's because of the cultural nuances that the Americans are exposed to. Uh, uh, Barring those the few differences with regard to these three areas: spelling, pronunciation, and meaning, and that also not to a large extent. It's not that in some cases words, for example, we say pavement, for example, or car, for example, boot of a car, all those. But with regard to with exception to these few areas, uh, they are basically almost same.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for such an enlightening session. Hope you have enjoyed, sir. Have a good day, sir.
Thank you, all the best, all the
Thank you,
best to
sir.
all participants.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.